Here in Japan, katsu is very well known and is served in most teishoku restaurants. But the word katsu actually originally came from the English word cutlet, which became the Japanese word katsuretsu, which then became shortened to be katsu, which is now said in a lot of English-speaking countries as katsu. So it's kind of come full circle. And although it seems to have started as tonkatsu, which is the pork katsu, it now basically means any kind of breaded and fried protein. And for any of my fellow Brits out there, a katsu curry is not a katsu curry if it doesn't have a piece of breaded fried katsu. If it doesn't, then it's just a Japanese curry. So to make this chicken katsu, we're going to start with our chicken breasts. But chicken breasts are notoriously dry, so we're going to do as much as we can to make them as not dry as possible and to keep some of their texture. So to do that, first we need to cut it in half. I always do this because Japanese chicken breasts are huge. If you have a smaller chicken breast, then maybe you can get away with not doing this step. And this might be a bit tricky if it's your first time, but I always find that you need to cut a little bit lower than you think. So this is called butterflying, when you make it into this shape, and then you just cut all the way through. So now we have two nice pieces of meat for our katsu, but they might still be a little bit uneven. If that's the case, you can pound out the larger parts with a meat mallet or a small heavy pot. And I often cut off this small part at the end if it is particularly thin. And then I'll just freeze it and use it in a curry or something. So now that our chicken is nice and even, that means that it'll cook nice and evenly. So the ends won't get all dry and overdone. But if you don't remember anything else from this video, please remember this next part, which is called brining, because this will make our chicken very, very soft and juicy. So for brining, for every 100 milliliters of water, you need 10 grams of salt. As you pour this salt solution over them, make sure that everything is submerged, and then brine them for 15 minutes. So whilst we're waiting for our chicken to brine, we can heat up our oil. I recommend using a thermometer so that you can keep an eye on the temperature. And I'm reusing some oil here and adding a little bit extra fresh oil to get it up to 2 inches of oil. And we're going to heat it up until it gets to the 160 to 180 range. After 15 minutes of brining, we take out the chicken and dab it on paper towels. This will get rid of any excess water and any excess salt. Please do not worry about it being too salty, it will not be. I like to keep it with just the light seasoning from the brine, but if you want, you can add a little bit of pepper and even a little bit of sake if you want. But just a little bit, we're not making drunken chicken here. Then to 3 unnecessarily large trays, we are going to add our flour, our egg, and our panko. And make sure when you beat your egg that it doesn't look like this, but looks more like this. That way it will be much easier for the egg to stick to the chicken. Then cover your chicken in the batter in that order. Cover in flour, making sure to get every little crevice. Then the egg, making sure to swirl it around. And then the panko, making sure to push all of the panko down into the chicken. And by the way, panko actually just literally means breadcrumbs. So now we're ready to fry, and whenever I deep fry or shallow fry, as we're doing today, then I always have my 2 friends, the bowl and the spider. And a spider is basically just a very fine mesh sieve on a handle. And you use this not only for taking the chicken out of the oil, but also for taking out any excess crumbs around the pan to make sure that we keep our oil clean between batches. And then you just put it into the bowl. That's why you have the bowl. When you put your chicken in, just make sure to gently lay it away from you. Then we'll cook it on this side for 3 to 4 minutes, and then on the other side for another 3 to 4 minutes. And just make sure to move it around occasionally so that you get a nice even browning. Then take your chicken out and put it onto a wire rack to get rid of any of that excess oil, and it should reach an internal temperature of around 68 degrees Celsius. then this step is very important. Make use of your friendship with the bowl and the spider, and use the spider to take out any excess bits of batter. Do this between every frying batch that you do. If you leave it in there, then they will start to burn and they will start to discolor your oil, and you might not even be able to get to the end of your batch without your oil going bad. But if you do remember to do this between every batch, then you'll be able to keep your oil and use it again on another day. So then just repeat the same thing for all of your pieces of chicken. If you feel that your pot is big enough, you can do 2 pieces at a time. Then whilst we're waiting for the last one to cook, we can make a very simple tonkatsu sauce with just ketchup, Worcester sauce, and oyster sauce. Then seeing as this is usually eaten with chopsticks, then we'll cut this up into bite-sized pieces and serve it alongside some finely cut cabbage and some short grain white rice. And of course, a generous helping of our delicious tonkatsu sauce. Exciting! So I've just taken a bunch of pictures and b-roll, so it has been sitting out for a few minutes now, but it's still super crispy, listen. Beautiful. So visually this looks pretty good. We have the usual giant pile of shredded cabbage, so let's give it a taste. So one of the problems that you can often run into when you just make a chicken katsu without doing any of the steps to preserve the texture and the moisture is that you can end up with these really crispy, really dry ends of the chicken. I just started with the end piece there, and that was still just really nice and juicy and such a perfect texture. The outside is crisp, but the inside is tender and a little salty, and that sauce just brings everything together. And I tend to just drown my cabbage in the sauce afterwards as well. And this is just overall a really good chicken katsu, and I'm really proud with how it turned out after all of my different experiments. If you want to learn more Japanese recipes like this one, then please subscribe. But that's it for today, so I'll see you next Sunday.